Apparently, sitemaps are still very much a thing, despite their use probably being a bit more debated now. Given how good Googlebot is at indexing your site, you probably don't really need a sitemap. Either way, a lot of sites still do have them, especially e-com sites with lots of products and things. And in this video, I'm going to show you how we can use Scrapy and its sitemap spider to crawl, parse, and process all of the links to a specific rules that we want, so we can go ahead and scrape just the pages that we're after. So if I come to this site here, you'll see that we have a standard e-com site, and to find the sitemap, you just type /sitemap after the URL, and there we go. Here's a load of links. This is not exactly what we're after though, but it's close. If we go to .xml, we're going to get the XML for all of these links that are going to hold all the product links, all the information that we want that we can give to our sitemap spider. Now this has formatted it like this for some reason. If I go to view page source, once it decides to eventually load up, because this is a massive sitemap, we'll see the XML that the sitemap spider is going to be able to pass. I'll just zoom in a little bit when it catches up so we can check out some of the links. So if we look here, here's the sort of standard. You've got the URL opening tag like this and the lock tag with the actual URL in, and there's so many here. So if I go down and look for this particular brand, we'll see that we've got 317 results of all different links. And if I go up, here's some products here, look. So what we can do is we can actually use Scrapy sitemap spider to actually find all the links that match this rule. So if I go to the Scrapy documentation and search for sitemap spider, we can get an idea of how it will work. So I've used the crawl spider a lot, and I tend to use that more often, most possibly, than the regular spider. But this is another good one to understand that you have access to if you use Scrapy that might be useful to you. So it's fairly straightforward. Here we go. You can see we have a sitemap URL that we can give it, which is a list, and a list of rules, with the first part being the rule that we're going to match the URL with, and then the callback function. So if we look at our sitemap, they have all the product URLs are in a specific format. They have the SKU, then the slash, and then afterwards they have this brand name, followed by the product name. Now I'm going to use that to my advantage, so I can say, scrape me all the products with this brand. So let's get started. So I have my projects folder open here. I'm going to create a new directory called sitemap example. We'll cd into this, and then we'll create our new virtual environment. Because we need this, we're going to be installing Scrapy, which has lots of dependencies. Activate it. ACT is just a shortcut for me. And then we will do pip3 install Scrapy is what we need. So our plan for this is to scrape all of the links that match a specific brand, and we're going to dump them into a database, only getting new ones to us rather than adding the same ones over and over again. So now that's done, I'm going to do Scrapy start project, and we'll just we'll call this ecom, make it nice and easy. We'll cd into this folder, and we'll do Scrapy gen spider products, and the URL was this, like so. So that's going to create that spider template for us, but we are going to obviously need to change that a lot. Whilst we're here, I'm just going to start up Tmux with myself a new session, so I can have a new window over here as well for my terminal. However you choose to run this stuff is entirely up to you. I just use this and split my sessions over like this. So there we go. Right, I'm going to open up my project folder. Actually, let's just check. So if I go to tree-I to eliminate the virtual environment, here's our Scrapy project. And you can see we have our key, product files, our py files here that we're going to need to use. So we will be using items, pipelines, settings, and products, which is why we're creating a project. It makes our lives easier, whereas you can run Scrapy from a single script if you want to. So my editor of choice at the moment is Helix. I use Helix a lot now. I quite like it. Giving it a go, comparing it to NeoVim. Use whichever editor you want, doesn't matter. So in our folder, the first thing we're going to come to do is our settings. We're going to change a couple of things here. We're going to give ourselves a better user agent. So we will want to change this to something a bit more real. From my browser, we'll just do my user agent. Grab this, paste it in, format that properly. There we go. I'm going to leave it like this for the moment. I think this should be fine. We might need to change some other things in here as we go along, but that was the main one. Cool. So let's save. And then we'll open up our spider, which is our products spider here. Now we don't want to import this. We want to change it. So we're going to do from scrapy.spiders. We're going to import in the sitemap spider class. And then we can change our product spider to be of that class. So we need to change this a little bit. This is not start URLs now. It's sitemap URL, sitemap URLs, I think. And we will want to change this to, I don't know if we need the www dot, but we'll put it in anyway. Sitemap-.xml, like so. Then we need to create our rules. So our sitemap rules, which needs to be a list. It also needs to be a tuple. And we're going to match initially this brand here. And we're going to send this back to pass products, call back to the function here. So I'm just going to create this pass product function. I think the pass one is held for default. There we go. Right. So now that's created, we're going to do a couple of other things first before we actually start to look at running this. So now that that's created, what we're actually going to do is we're going to save all of this and we're just going to check that it's going to run. So we'll do Scrapy crawl products and we'll just make sure that it's actually working and going to the links that we're actually looking for. Although we're not pulling any information out yet, but we can see that we are indeed going to the right sort of looking links. So if you look on the screen, you can see the links that we're going to have that brand in, which means hopefully our rule set is working. So I want to look at actually getting the items from this. So I'm going to open up my items.py file and we're going to add in a few extra things here first, and then we're going to create the item. So we are going to need to use the input and output processors. So we're going to do item loaders.processors. We're going to import in map compose and take first, and then from w3lib.html, we're going to import in remove tags. What this is going to do is when we create our fields, which is our for our item data, we're going to use map compose to actually do remove tags on all of these. So we're going to do all of our processing in here rather than in our spider file. It's up to you how you do this. I quite like this approach because you can use the item loader and everything can flow neatly through. And as we go into adding stuff to our database, we can then push all of this into a pipeline, which will handle adding it into the database and checking. If you're doing a lot of processing on the data that you're pulling out, it might be worth creating a pipeline to handle that. But if you're just doing a little bit of data manipulation, you can also put it in here. With map compose, you can pass in functions that you can create and then have that act on the fields as well. So let's create this here. We'll do that, uncomment this, and we'll have the first one, which will be brand. And then we'll say it's a Scrapy field with the input processor, which will be map compose, and it will be remove tags. And then the output processor is just going to be take first. Take first is just going to pull the first one from the actual list. So save. I've done this wrong. This should be equals. There we go. Great. So now let's go ahead and just copy this down. So highlight this, create a few new ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe. That might be one too many. And let's just format this a bit better. Still getting used to this. There we go. So we want brand. We're going to have title and then SKU. And then we'll have regular price and then sale price. And I'll show you why I'm doing this in just a second. Sale price. Cool, so we don't need this one. Let's remove that. I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller so it's a bit easier to manage and understand what's going on. There we go. So these are the fields that we're going to be pulling the data for, and each one is going to be run through the same input and output processor. Again, if you created your own function to do some data processing, you can put it in here. Sometimes I do this if I'm going to remove a single character from some of the data or something along those lines. But now we have this item set up here. Let's just take a look at the website real quick, and I'll show you what I mean when we're looking at this information. So we'll take this product, we'll do fine. We'll open it up if we scroll out. So here I'm going to go to inspect. And if I go over the price on this one, you'll see above my head here, this is how the product price is represented when the item is on sale on this website. It's all split out like this. However, if we find a product that isn't discounted and we go and look at the price, it's got it in just this regular price selector. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to pull one or the other depending which one is there, and the other one can be none or nothing or whatever. So if you're not sure about how you can pull the data, the best thing to do is just to copy a URL where you want information from, come into your general Scrapy folder and do Scrapy shell and paste the URL in here. What that's going to do is it's going to open it up where you can then query it with your selectors. So you can do response.css and then ask for the title or something like that, and you can see that working. Although what I tend to do is I tend to do response and we do view. This is going to open up a browser, and when we see this is exactly what our spider sees. If all the information is on this page that we can see, our spider can see it in this view, it's going to work just fine. So we don't need this here. So let's go back to I'm actually going to go into this folder. Cool. So let's go back to that's a bit neater. Back to our spider. There's C down here. Cool. We're going to import in our spider items. So I'm just going to do .items. We're going to import because we want to use the item that we just created with our item loader. So we'll do from scrapy.loader import item loader. There it is. So we're going to use this to basically take the field for the item and take the CSS selector from the response, squish them together and give us the actual data out that gets put through our input and output processors. So we'll say our item loader is going to be equal to this. The item is going to be the ecom item that we created. And the response is the response from the spider here, like so. This gives us the response that we can then query with our CSS selectors or XPath, and the item that we want to stick that data into, which is the one we just created on in the other file. So from here, it's basically just doing item loader.add. I'm going to do .add CSS. If you prefer XPath, you can also do that. Then the field, brand, and then the selector is going to go in there. I'll grab the selectors in a minute, but we have brand, title, SKU, and 2 prices. So let's just go ahead and add these in whilst we're here. Cool. And then what we want to do is we want to yield out of this our il.load item, and that is going to give us our item back that has been all loaded in with all the data. So we just need to grab these selectors. I'm just going to do this. There's no need for me to show you these all. Okay, so I've just grabbed these from the site, and if you were to use the inspect element tool, you'll see the selectors that I've used here. Product name, regular price, which is, here's the title price that I used, regular price, and so on and so forth. Any information that's on this page you can pass out. We're just taking it nice and easy and just using this information at the moment to work with our CSS selectors. So now I think is a good time to go back and try to run this and just check that we have correctly done the selectors and everything that we need. So we'll do Scrapy crawl, and it was a products spider like so. So we should start to see products coming through if we've done it correctly, and it looks like we have indeed here. You can see them here. So what I'm going to do at the moment now is I'm actually going to open up the settings again, and I'm going to enable the auto throttle add-on, which is going to be a bit further down here. So we're going to just put this in just so it's a bit slower. It's a bit more kind on, just use the defaults like so. And we will enable this. It also means that when it's running, I can talk and show you things that are happening rather than them just all totally flashing by in the screen. We will also disable cookies. I don't think we're going to want those. I didn't mean to close that. So let's have another quick go and just check that this is all working properly. So we can see the URLs that it's going to, like so. Cool. So there's some information coming through. Now, one thing to note is that we're actually going to find that we are visiting every page that has that slash with the brand. And there are going to be pages that aren't product pages. We have a couple of options with this. What we can do is we can either try to refine our sitemap rule so we don't visit those pages. That might be a little bit more difficult, but we'll have a look at that. Or we can look at adding in a check to make sure that we don't try and pull anything that doesn't exist when we go to try to add it to our database. We're going to come up against a couple of little issues there, but we will handle those now. So the first thing we want to go back to do is to our spider. So I'm going to come back to my product spider, and we're going to look at our sitemap rule. And let's see if we go back to the sitemap over here when it loads back up. We want to find one of the pages. I know this is all weird looking. So I don't think being able to refine the rules is going to help us a lot here. We're still always going to pick up that first page. So what we'll do is we'll build out the rest of the spider and we'll figure out how we're going to handle it going forward. You might find that your sitemap rule can be tweaked and you can actually handle these a bit better. So let's go and create our pipeline, which is where we are going to save all the data from the database. So the pipeline works by once the item has been scraped, it heads through the pipeline and then out the other end. And at this moment in time, there are no pipelines, so it just goes straight out the other end and we see it in our terminal. But we are going to want to store this data in a database, and I'm going to use SQLite for that. So we're going to import in SQLite 3 from Python to make our life easier in that respect. So from here, we're going to use the existing pipeline. You should probably give this a better name. I'm just going to leave it like this for now. But we do need to initialize some stuff with this here. So I'm going to do in itself, and we are going to do some SQL stuff in here. So we're going to say that our connection is going to be self.con is going to be equal to SQLite3.connect. And this is going to be our items.db. This is SQLite, so it's just a file. It's going to create this if it doesn't exist, or if it does exist, it's going to connect to it. Then our cursor, self.cur, is going to be equal to self.con.cursor. Oh, there we go, cursor. Cursor is what we can use to execute commands on the database. So let's do the first one, which we're going to do is going to be self.cur.execute. And from here, we want to actually execute some SQL. So I'm going to make this triple quote so we can just free type. And I'm going to do create table if not exists. And I'm going to call it products. And we're going to give it some information, brand, title, SKU, reg price, and sale price, like so. Now, you don't need to tell SQLite what sort of data type these are because it's never enforced, so I wouldn't bother. And that should be fine. Now, this is not indented properly, so let me just fix that. There we go. And we don't need the item adapter, so we'll just comment that out for now. Great. So now we have this. This is going to be formatted really badly. I'm not really sure what to do about that. Let's try and make it a bit better. Somewhat better. Okay. So what this is going to do is every time that we run this pipeline, it's going to initialize our connection to the database. It's going to create it if it doesn't exist. We're going to create our cursor that we can then use to execute on to the database. And we're going to create this table if it doesn't exist with these fields. Nice and simple, straightforward. We're then going to do our process item. So what we want to do in here is we want to actually take the item data and add it into the database. So this is going to be basically the same sort of thing. So self.cur.execute, and we're going to say in here our insert into products, and we're going to say what fields do we want to insert into, our brand, our title, SKU, and our regular price and our sale price. And we want to give it values. And these values are we going to use placeholders for the moment because we're going to insert our data into these placeholders like so. And what data are we putting into them? Well, we're putting in the item data. So we'll do item, and it was brand like so. So let's copy this line and we'll do item 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll say the title was next, then the SKU, SKU, and then the regular price, and then the sale price. Sweet. So this is going to then take the data, it's going to insert it, and then we just do self.con.commit. So we commit it to the database each time. So every time we get an item, it's going to come through this pipeline when we enable it in just a second. It's going to insert into the database, and we are good to go. But we would be good to go, but what we need to do is every time we want to actually check to make sure that we don't already have that item in the database. Otherwise, we're just going to add the same thing over and over again and have loads of multiples, which is absolutely not what we want. So to do that, I'm going to put in a check here. So we want to actually search in the database first. So we'll do self.cur.execute because we want to check in here. And we'll do a simple select. So we'll do select, I should put this in capitals, select everything from products where SKU is equal to, and again with a placeholder, and then item SKU. We're going to use the SKU because it is going to be the unique product identifier. So we're saying we're going to search for this SKU in our database. And if it exists, we're going to do something else. If it doesn't exist, we'll carry on. So what I'm going to do is we'll say result is then going to be equal to self.cursor.fetch1. So we get the result back, and then we'll make this a bit neater on another line. If result, so we're saying if this result exists, we're going to raise a Scrapy error and called a drop item, and we'll say item already exists in database, and we'll put this into an F string once I type this correctly. Item SKU, cool, and let's make this an F string so we can see every time we go through, we'll know that this item already exists. Now we just need to put our import that in. So we'll do from scrapy.exceptions. We're going to import in drop item there. So it's basically a neat way of handling that here. But we don't want this to happen if this finds it. So I'm just going to put this inside an else. And we'll then put this all in here. And indent you in. Cool. Done. That should be fine. So we'll check this in just a minute. But we're saying let's search for the item first as it comes through this pipeline. If it exists, it'll be in the result, and then we'll just drop the item. Else, we're going to insert it here. Now we need to make sure that our settings has the pipeline enabled. So we'll go down to our pipeline. Next one, here we go. So we just uncomment these lines, and because we didn't change the name, this is the default pipeline. Again, if you have multiple pipelines, you probably want to change the name there. So I'm going to save this, and we're going to go and try and run it, and we'll figure out what errors we've made and what we need to do to fix them. Hopefully none, but you never know, we might find some. Okay, so we have a key error here, and that is because, we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so I've messed up my select statement. I will fix that now. Incorrect. Okay, so I needed to put this into a tuple here to insert. That should be fine now. Cool, let's try that again. So it was failing on our check. We should now start to see. We're going to get the key error again first. So that's, as I said, expected. Okay, so we can start to see where we're having some problems here. Key error, key error. If I stop this now and we have a look and go up, what the issue is here is that we're trying to add an item to the database that has a key expected of sale price, but this product doesn't have a sale price. It has a standard price. And so we are having an error. Now, there's a couple of different ways I think we could probably handle this. You could maybe change your execute statement so you can only add in where it doesn't exist, or you could create a default value for these. So for the sake of learning a bit more about pipelines, I'm going to create a default value pipeline that we can then actually put in front of our database pipeline that's going to add in a default value to either of those two fields if they don't exist. That's going to create us another problem, but we'll look at that in just a minute as well. So this will be default value pipeline. And this is going to take, this is our class, and then we need the process item, takes itself, item, and the spider. And from here, what we want to do is we can just do item dot set default. And we'll set the default for, what were the fields called? Regular price. And we can give it a default value. I don't know if a blank field will work. Probably not. So actually, I'm just going to put in, let's put in none as text. That's probably not ideal, but we'll use that as an example for now. And then we'll do the same for sale price. Like so. Okay, I think that will do. And then we'll return the item back out of this pipeline so we can add it into our thing. Go back to our pipelines. I'm going to create a new one here. And this was called default value pipeline. And this needs to be a lower number, so it is executed first. Right, so let's go back to run our spider again. Let's clear the screen first. So we're going to have default values now, but when we hit a page that isn't an actual product page, we're still going to get this value, this key error, because it's trying to find something there that doesn't exist. So let's let this run a little bit, and we'll check the database, and then we'll talk about maybe how we want to handle the other thing. Okay, so this all seems to be working fine. So I'm going to stop this, and we will start having a look at the database. Now, to look inside your SQLite database, I usually do it from the terminal, but you can also do it with things like DB browser, I think is a good one, which is a GUI interface. I'm going to do it like this. We're just going to do open items.db. If we hit tables, we should have our products table. So we can do select everything from products, and we can see that we have some data here, and the word none has been put in where it doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and exit out of this and try running it again, and we should hopefully now hit our where it doesn't get added because it got dropped because it existed already, and then we'll handle this error. Okay, so this is still not working as I was wanting it to, but we do have our dropped item already exists in database. So let's close this and have a look at the error that we saw up here now. Okay, so you can see we're crawling a page which matches our rules, which matches our rule set here, which is the rule we've asked for. But because we've set a default value for our regular price and sale price, we have these default values in, and then we can't do what we wanted to do with them in the first place because they don't exist. So we're going to have a bit of an issue here. So again, it's up to you how you want to handle this. I'm going to do it a little bit. I think I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to do, let's go back to our pipelines. So we notice we could either set default values for everything. That might be the best option. So then we can say if it doesn't have this value, we can do that. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and copy these, and we'll do default value for brand. It's going to be none. And then SKU title. So this is going to give us an entry that's none, and when we hit our execute, because we're going to be searching for a SKU of none, it's going to ignore it from every other time. Does mean we'll have one entry in our database that is just none across the board. You could put in an if statement in there if you wanted to. See, there's our full none where it didn't find anything on the page, and it's going to insert that into the database. We could put an if statement in our other pipeline and say, like, hey, if the brand is none, just dump this all together. But I'm going to leave it like this. We'll just handle the fact that one line says none. I'm not sure what the best way to do this is going to depend on your use case. But you can see here we've got this warning, dropped item already exists in database. So we're just getting rid of that one. We don't need it because we've already got it. And here I think is the first one where it's adding it again, we're adding it again, we're adding it. So this is going to just tick through based on the rule set that we've asked for, finding the links from the sitemap where the sitemap spider is parsing all of that for us. And it's going to go through all those links and it's going to create the product like this. It's going to use the item and the item loader through our pipeline based on our default value pipeline first, because that had the lower number, then into our SQLite pipeline, and it's going to push all this information into the database where the SKU doesn't already exist in the database. So we're basically going to we would end up with a full data set of all the products, and we could just run this every now and again, pick up all the new ones that matched our criteria as well. So I'm going to stop this. No need for this to carry on running. But yeah, there's a lot of things in here I think could be a little bit tidier, but this is kind of hopefully giving you a good idea of how this sort of thing can work, some of the ways that you can just sort of try to overcome some of the issues that you find within Scrapy. Like here I did defaults because I needed them for my database, but again you could do it a different way. Dropping the item if it already exists is pretty handy to know how to do, and of course the actual sitemap spider itself, which is a bit more niche but still very useful. And of course you can have multiple sitemap URLs, multiple sitemap rules that point to different callback functions as you need to do so. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. It's a bit more of a deeper dive into Scrapy and working out how you can use it to scrape data based on your rule set and the sitemap spider. If you've enjoyed this video, definitely subscribe and like, and there's loads more scraping content on my channel amongst other things. Join the Discord, loads of people in there now, well over 1,000 members, which is fantastic. People helping, all this cool stuff. Do that, come and join in, say hello, come and tell me what I could have done better here. I always like to know so I can, tidy my stuff up as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye.